Ang susunod na programa ay rated PGI. Patnubay at gabay ng Islam ay kailangan para sa mga hindi Muslim na manonood.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Welcome to Turning Point. In response to the threat of war at the global level, the United Nations has called on nations to engage in dialogue of civilizations. And yet, 1,435 years ago, Islam has already established interfaith dialogue or dialogue of civilizations as institution. Today, my friends, I would like to discuss with you the position of Islam on the subject interfaith dialogue. What is the position of Islam as far as the subject matter is concerned? We can find or leap source from the Holy Quran in Surah Hujurat chapter 49 verse 13, which I will quote. And it says here, O mankind, we created you from a single pair of a male and a female, and made you into nations and tribes, that you may know each other, not that ye may despise each other. Verily, the most honored of you in the sight of God is he who is the most righteous of you. And God has full knowledge and is well acquainted with all things. Unquote. Very, very clearly, God has created mankind into nations and tribes. And the wisdom behind this is not to separate man from each other, nor to divide mankind into tribes and nations so that they will become warring factions against each other. The wisdom, according to the Quran, by creating mankind into tribes and nations, is for them, quote, to know each other, not to despise each other. The word reflective of this particular position, to know each other, not to despise each other, as used in this particular verse, is lita'arafu. So that word lita'arafu, which is translated, that you may know each other, not that you may despise each other, becomes the center or the focal point or the foundation of Islamic position for interfaith dialogue or dialogue of civilizations as called by the United Nations. So ladies and gentlemen, if the purpose of Islam by dividing mankind into tribes and nations is not to separate or differentiate them from one another, but to foster understanding, because the idea is that ye may know each other. Therefore, one of the things essential for the promotion of dialogue of civilizations is accommodation of principles, accommodation of beliefs, accommodation of one another, irrespective of faith and irrespective of brotherhood. Second to accommodation is the language of tolerance. And so these two terms, accommodation and tolerance, becomes therefore the foundation or the associative term for the word lita'arafu, which is declared in the Quran as the basis for interfaith dialogue. In addition to that, my friends, because the Quran says that I have divided you into nations and tribes, not for you to separate yourself from one another, but for you to understand each other, the only difference mentioned in this verse that will distinguish one mankind from the other in this particular respect, since we are talking about interfaith dialogue, from a Muslim and a Christian, from a Christian and a Hindu, or a Buddhist, from a Buddhist or a Hindu and an indigenous person is what the Quran says here. Verily, the most honored of you in the sight of God is he who is the most righteous of you. So the only determinant that distinguishes humankind from each other is the word righteousness. It is not the division of mankind into tribes and nations, but it is the righteousness of one being against the righteousness of another being. And that is the basic determinant for distinction of mankind in the sight of God. And that is the only one that divides mankind, that is righteousness. Not tribes, not nations, but righteousness. And the purpose and the wisdom, as the Quran said, لِتَعَارَفُوا, that ye may know each other. My friends, let us see the position of the Quran in respect of Muslims among Muslims. Here we talk of intra-faith dialogue. Later on, I will discuss to you the position of Islam in relation to people of the book. And then I will also discuss to you the position of Islam in relation to indigenous people, meaning to say, those who are not identified in the Quran as people of the book. But I will discuss to you first what is the position of Islam as far as Muslims are concerned. In other words, intra-faith dialogue among Muslims. And the Quran in Surah Al-Ma'idah, chapter 5, verse 48, has this to say, and I quote, "To thee we send the scripture in truth," meaning to say, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, confirming the scripture that came before it and guarding it in safety. So judge between them by what had God revealed, and follow not their vain desires, diverging from the truth that had come to them or to thee. To each among you have we prescribed a law and an open way. If God had so willed, he would have made you a single people. But his plan is to test you in what he hath given you. So strive as in a race in all virtues. I want to underscore this phrase. So strive as in a race in all virtues. Fastabiqul khairat in Arabic, because this is the foundation of intrafaith relations among Muslims. I will discuss that later on, but I will continue with the text of the verse. The plan is to test you in what he had given you. So strive as in a race in all virtues. The goal of you is to God. It is he that will show you the truth of the matters in which ye dispute, unquote. Now, the injunction here is for Muslims among themselves to compete, to strive, as if they are racing against each other, but this time, it is for virtue end. It is for virtue end. Competition is not allowed, is not prohibited in Islam. Competition is encouraged in Islam, and that is why the Quran said, strive as in a race. But what kind of competition for Muslims among themselves that the Quran speaks about? It is competition for good ends. It is composition for constructive views. It is competition for betterment of their lot and for betterment of their ummah. And that is why, so strive as in a race in all virtues is the command of the Quran insofar as Muslims among themselves are concerned. If I may have to use the word now for distinctive communication, if they will have to interfaith or intrafaith among themselves. This position now underscores what we in the Islamic Ummah or the Muslim world believe is the foundation of interfaith dialogue or dialogue of civilizations from the perspective of the Quran and in relation of Muslims among themselves. My friends, turning point will be coming back, but keep and stay with us. will be returning.
Dr. Joe, congratulations on your new program, Turning Point. We're very proud of you. And I think and I believe that this will be a very enriching and helpful program that will be appreciated by many Filipinos who are concerned about nation building and peace building, especially in the South. Congratulations, Dr. Joe.
My friends, let's continue. A while ago, I discussed to you the foundation for interfaith dialogue in Islam, and at the same time, the basis for Muslims intrafaithing with one another. Now, I will discuss to you the basis for relationship of Muslims with people of the book. And I would like to read to you the verse found in Surah Ankabut chapter 26, verse 46. Chapter 29 rather, verse 46. And I would like to read from the text of the Quran, which says here, and I quote, "And dispute ye not with the people of the book, except with means better than mere disputation, unless it be with those of them who inflict wrong and injury, but say," quote, "we believe in the revelation which has come down to us, and in that which came down to you. Our God and your God is one, and it is to Him we bow in Islam," or in submission, unquote. Our God and your God is one. Ilahunna wa ilahukum wahid is the foundation for Muslim people of the book relationship. The Quran spoke of many things about people of the book, and I would like to read to you the research output that I have made in the process of making sure that this lecture will reach you with fine statements and details. The present-day Jews and the Christians, as in the past, were referred to as people of the book, Ahlul Kitab, in fellowship or brotherhood with Muslims, being or having been prepared for Islam or similarly gifted with divine revelations. These revelations came from God. In Surah Jathiyah, chapter 45, verse 1, and it came down to us step by step, according to Surah Al-Imran, chapter 3, verse 3, and according to Surah Bani Israel, chapter 17, 106, in continuity from Adam to Noah, to Abraham, to Moses, and to Jesus, to mention 5, until its final perfection, Akmaltu, in Surah Ma'idah, chapter 5, verse 4, with Muhammad, Khatamil Anbiya, the final and the seal of prophets. These brotherly Jews and Christians were the ones extended in the Quran, common terms, or ila kalimatin sawa'i, which we can find in Surah Al-Imran, chapter 3, verse 64, which says, and I quote, "Say, O people of the book, come to common terms." You see, come to common terms. Kalimatin sawa'i. As between us and you, that we worship none but God, that we associate no partners with Him, that we erect not from among ourselves lords and patrons other than God, unquote. In Surah Al-Baqarah, which is chapter 2, verse 62, we saw the people of the book, Jews, Christians, and Muslims together, promise the rewards with God so long as they do righteousness. Falahum ajruhum inda rabbihim. In Surah Ma'idah, we quoted earlier, which is chapter 5, verse 68, and in Surah Zathiyah, chapter 45, verse 47, both the brotherly Jews and Christians were urged to practice their religions. They were even urged to practice their religions. And my friends, Islam forbids Muslims to argue with people of the book except in what way? In best way, as indicated in earlier surah we have cited, Surah Ankabut, which is chapter 29, verse 46, and urges Muslims to say, and quote, "We believe in the revelation which has come down to us, and in that which came down to you. Our God and your God is one, and it is to him we bow in submission or Islam," unquote. Finally, the Quran addresses the Muslims, the Jews, and the Christians together. We find this in Surah Al-Ma'idah, chapter 5, verse 48, including other spiritual expressions or communities and indigenous traditions or communities. We find this in Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 62, and allows Muslims even to eat the food of the people of the book and marry their women. My dear friends, on account of this elucidation, we are saying here that among the religious expressions available in the world today, it is the Quran that has a complete text of elaborating relationship among people irrespective of faiths. Whether such people belong to Judaism, such people belong to Christianity, or such people belong to the moral teachings of moral teachers, like, for example, Confucius and the Taoism, for example. So whether they belong in these schools, as far as the Quran is concerned, the treatment is very simple: tolerant accommodation and peaceful recognition of each other's beliefs and practices. I said earlier, 1,435 years ago, Quran had already laid down the foundation for this interfaith dialogue, or what the United Nations call dialogue of civilizations. And as early as that time, Islam has been the forerunner for dialogue of civilizations. And that is the reason why it believes in the brotherhood of men. So the interfaith dialogue promotion, or rather objective insofar as Islam is concerned, is the promotion of fellowship of faiths among religious peoples, irrespective of traditions. As I said, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, indigenous peoples' expression and traditional practices. The forging of all of this together should provide an emergence for the establishment of fellowship of faiths among mankind. And I think the very basic purpose of this one is to allow the institution of peace to prevail over institution of evil. We will be getting back in few minutes. Stay with us. Turning Point is back. Thank you very much for holding. We have just finished discussion or relationship of Muslims in relation to people of the book. And now I would like to discuss to you the relationship of Muslims in relation to non-people of the book and non-Muslims. I'm referring to indigenous traditions and spiritual expressions. Islam has this to say in Surah Al-Baqarah, chapter 2, verse 62, and I quote, "Those who believe in the Quran," meaning to say the Muslims, "and those who follow the Jewish scriptures," meaning to say the Jews, "and the Christians," meaning to say those who follow the Injil, "and the Sabians." These are the indigenous people, non-people of the book, non-Muslims. "And the Sabians," the Quran said, "and the Sabians, or any who believe in God and the last day and work righteousness shall have the reward with their Lord. On them shall be no fear rather, nor shall they grieve," unquote. So Islamic position as far as non-Muslims, non-people of the book are concerned, they are given the assurance that so long as they believe in the last day and do righteousness on earth, the Quran says, don't worry, you will have your reward with God, and you should not have fear inside your hearts and your minds, because the reward will come to you. So again, my dear friends, the overriding philosophy, we are back to Lita'arafu. The overriding philosophy of interfaith dialogue is righteousness. And this is the one that brings us together in common towards the sovereignty of one and only. And if we are able to execute plans in common for this particular end, then there's no doubt that mankind is indeed in universal dialogue of civilizations and faith. And we are hoping that through this dialogue, the fellowship of faiths will be established among mankind for the sake of peace in the world. We'd like to invite you to join us in the next episode of Turning Point, when we shall come back with discussion this time on the position or role of women in Islam, which is again a very hotly debated subject matter. And Turning Point will be making the first splash on this particular subject and see what is actually the position of Islam in Islam. Can women lead society? Because there is an assumption working out there that women cannot become leaders of society. We'll try to find out and answer this question. So join us in this discussion, when Turning Point will be coming back in the next episode. For now, I would like to thank all of you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.